Good morning. This is Walter Amarello. This is 100 Millionaires. I'm here with Mike Schein and Joe Ackaway. Mike, introduce yourself.
Schein, nice to see you. Passive income from passive income. Sounds good. We're winging
Love
it.
Love it. It's good to see you, Mike. I feel like it's been, the weekends are just too long, man. We go all these days without seeing each other, and then finally Wednesday's back, so we get to record.
That's very sweet. I'll take it.
So what? And I've actually interviewed Joe before in the live forum. What was it about? Because I already like him, right? What was it that made you reach out and say, "Hey, let's bring Joe Ackaway on here"?
Yeah, so that's kind of a crazy thing, or I guess I know you're in Massachusetts, but it's a Rhode Island thing. But you knew Joe, but I already knew Joe. We had actually done deals where we had referred his company, RIA 1031 Exchange, right? And they did a great job as the qualified intermediary on a couple of deals for us. And then I went to Fall River, and you were interviewing Joe. That was crazy. I'm like, wait a second. So yeah,
it's interesting, and this is the reason I ended up contacting him. Was at the Rhode Island RIA. He was up speaking, and then he mentioned that he'd worked with Mike Schein before, and that he really liked Mike. And I was like, all right, this guy's cool.
That's a good sign, right?
I was like, that's a good sign. I like Mike too.
Was that the same day you had the mayor?
Yeah.
It was the same one. Yeah.
Yeah, I had the mayor of Fall River speaking about all the benefits of Fall River, why it makes sense to invest here. Yeah. And I actually recorded and transcribed that. I want to put it into a book. City on the Rise, How to Invest in Fall River. That's it's one of my side projects.
Oops.
Yep.
I don't know if that's the path you want to take.
Move to Rhode Island, Walter.
I know. You know what? The prices are very similar. Rhode Island really is. It's a great place to invest. No, but we have just as much corruption, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Probably.
It'd be very comfortable for me over there.
Yeah. Right. We put you right in on Federal Hill. You could just put a place right there, buy one of those big multis.
Yeah. Right next to, they got a whole bunch of great restaurants over there. It'd be perfect.
Yeah. Yep. But I wanted Joe to come on because I noticed that we talk about a lot of stuff, and the 1031 stuff just gets thrown around all the time. So I think that there's a lot of people who could get value out of hearing Joe talk about 1031 exchanges. And because, Walter, you're worldwide now. Worldwide,
national.
Yeah, it's like Pitbull or something. Worldwide. That I thought that there'd be value for the people who are listening to the podcast. So yeah.
There absolutely will, and like we always do, I'll be taking information for myself and my own business, and I already know Joe is the 1031 guy that I'll be using next year as we're doing these 1031s. And I got to brag a little bit. I just got out of my tax appointment yesterday with my tax accountant, and I'm claiming, actually, this is the first year I'm claiming less than Ron, and Ron is, well, I don't want to say he's claiming, whatever, but I'm claiming $45,000 this year, $45,000, and my tax bill is almost nothing because it's capital gains.
Yeah,
it was like $3,000 to Massachusetts, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, so Joe is also my tax accountant, and I'm telling Joe, I'm like, Joe, you messed up, because last year I owed $35,000. And I didn't change much other than a couple things that we did, right?
Yeah.
And he just said, well, your expenses were education, they were travel, they were hotels. Nice. There was a lot of money you put back into the business, your marketing fees, all the programs that you spend. And I looked over around, I was like, pays to have expenses, bro. Enjoy yourself. Pay that tax bill.
That's cool. Yeah.
It was cool. Cool. So all the stuff that we use in our business, the stuff that we do, literally is how I live my life, is now a tax advantage. So very cool.
Yeah, nice job.
Yeah. So Joe Ackaway, since we're talking about taxes, what is your favorite 1031 to do for people?
Well, I like helping every investor we deal with whatever their situation is. And I just want to say I'm happy to be on here with you guys. I appreciate the spot, I think it's the perfect audience for, educating on this, because like you said, there's a lot of mystique around 1031 exchanges when they get talked about, but it's important to know the nuts and bolts of it when it comes to applying it to your own situation. And we see all sorts of, investing styles. And I'd just like to go through all the basics with you guys. And, there's even more complicated exchanges than the typical one, and things that not a lot of people know about.
Yeah, I remember when you and I were speaking last time, we touched on reverse 1031s. We touched on a bunch of different options that was
Exactly.
far more complex than the typical. Well, it's already a complex process, but it was a lot of fun, thinking about the different options we have, even though it may cost a little bit more to set this up and do this and have that escrow account. There are times where it actually makes sense.
Definitely.
So
And
maybe we can just kind of back up for some of the newbies that are in here who don't know what a 1031 tax exchange is, and also don't know where the number 1031 comes from. You don't have to buy 10 properties to sell 31.
So buy 10, sell 31. Actually, no. If you say this enough times, people are going to think
very
that's what
specific. Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's like get a whole new perception on this.
All right. So
buy 10 3 families, keep one.
Yes, exactly.
So 1031 refers to the section of the tax code that these provisions are set forth in. And what my company does, we're an intermediary, qualified intermediary, or QI, for these exchanges. And we make sure that our clients are following all the rules that the IRS sets forth to be sure that you are able to defer the tax. And simply put, if you're selling investment property and plan to use the proceeds to buy more investment property, this lays out a process you can follow to defer the capital gains tax you would normally owe.
Nice.
Nice.
Sometimes that can be upwards of 40%, right?
Yeah, it can be. Typically 25 to 40%. And it's all the more important when people are looking big picture to have this tool in part of your investing, tool belt, and implement it properly. That it's as impactful as anything else you could be doing in a lot of cases, based on the huge wealth you can keep rolling into your properties and buying more pre-tax dollars.
Well, yeah. I mean, you notice it just in the first one, right? Like the first one, you notice it, but it's not until you get 2 or 3 of these 1031s like into it that you're sitting with,
another door or two,
an entire other building, right?
Yep.
That
amazing.
would not have existed if you just took the money out of the system.
Another eye opener is when people miss the opportunity to do one, realize the gain that they have, and they're upset with their accountant because their accountant should have given them a little heads up on the options. And that's why it's important. I like to reach out to, CPAs and realtors as well, but probably our strongest source of referrals is real estate attorneys like Mike. And we do love working with offices like Mike's, and it just awareness goes a long way to prevent those catastrophes. Like, oh, I just sold last week, I'd like to do a 1031. Well, you can't. You need to have things in place prior to closing.
Yeah, it's like, that's cute, but no.
Yep.
Now, the other thing that I've noticed with people with 1031 money is that they can usually come in and buy another property and outbid people because there's so much of a tax benefit to them that they're willing to pay a little bit more for the.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. And with 1031 exchanges, your tax basis rolls into the next property you buy. So if someone's done a few of these already, they would have a huge obligation if they were to just sell without a 1031 after a few. And like you said, that changes the way you might be going after properties. And in the big picture, it's definitely still worth it. And clients doing a 1031, they've already sold and they have the cash on hand. So it's typically a better buying situation for them, other than the time pressure.
but I don't know if it was my dad or someone else, but they had the phrase regarding 1031s. It was defer, 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 die.
Yes, that's the
like
best tax plan.
Yeah.
I like swap till you drop, but they're both
That's
good.
what I'm thinking. I was looking, and I think when you did the live one in Fall River, you said that, and
Yeah, that's one of my catchphrases.
Hold on, I'm gonna hashtag that in the Facebook Live. Swap till you drop.
Well, that actually hints at one of the big picture strategies where
thank you.
you're not only so if you're continually using 1031s and you get to the end of your investing career and you're to pass away with the property, your heirs would inherit it with a step up in the tax basis, so that if they were to sell the next day, you know, they wouldn't be looking at the enormous gain that you otherwise would have had rolling forward.
So that's the amazing thing. So it's like one of Walter's clients who owns like a 3-family in Fall River, and then talks to Walter, and Walter says, well, why don't you go get like a 4-family, and then after that maybe you go get a strip mall, and you keep going up, because like kind exchange doesn't mean it has to be the exact same type of property. Right. And then at the end of the road, after you've amassed all this wealth, you pass away. Unfortunately, we all move on.
That's in the game plan.
Yeah,
it's part of the game. There's no skipping the step.
Right? But the blessing is that your kids get it with a stepped up basis. Right? And so they don't, all those taxes that you deferred go away, right?
Yeah, essentially all the big ones. And
amazing.
Yeah, other strategies that achieve that with 1031s is converting to personal use. That's something people can do that doesn't involve dying. So along the way, that can help.
Awesome.
So if you don't like your kids, you can lean on this one.
Nope.
Explain that one.
So you could, in theory, here, because I'm going to okay, so you're already doing really good with about to explain this, but I'm going to make it more complex. You could buy 2 houses from the sale of one, right? You could buy one for personal use and one for business use.
I got to stop you there. It's a little tricky. Kind of, but not quite is the answer. One of the main requirements with 1031s is both properties involved, what you're selling and what you're buying, are intended to be for investment use. So, however, like over time, people's intent can change, and they can take advantage of other sections of the tax code that not only defer the tax, but can even avoid it. And that's the sale of your personal primary residence. So let's say you sell the multi in Fall River and you buy something that you definitely intend to rent out. If you're renting it out for over a year, that's the best generally accepted proof of your intent there. But then things change. You can wind up moving into something and it won't blow the 1031 if you've initially rented it.
Really?
Then if you, so then you can stay there for 2 of 5 years, sell, and take advantage of what's called the Section 121 exclusion for up to 250,000 or 500,000 of gain, depending on if you're single or a couple.
All right, so I gotta back you up because this is like the biggest question I get all the time.
Sure.
I want to sell my 3-family and I want to go buy a property down in Florida. And maybe rent it out for a few years, and then when we retire, move into it. Is that?
That's pretty much the scenario there. It wouldn't blow the 1031 as long as you did initially use it for rental, and you can't spend the summers there right away. That would blow it. You have to watch your personal use. It has to be no more than 14 days or 10% of the days you're renting it out. So really slim on that.
After a year or so, I know I had one where an attorney was saying do 14 months. He was probably just being safe. That's our general idea behind it is if you're showing the rental income on 2 tax returns, that's gonna, that's been fairly irrefutable proof of your intention for it to be an investment property. Nice. Wow.
And another thing that Mike brought up is like-kind property. That's another really common misconception we run into.
Yep.
So you sell the multifamily, people think that they have to stay in that lane and reinvest in a multifamily.
Right.
But essentially, when it comes to real estate, all real estate is like-kind to other real estate. And that phrase like-kind had more to do with non-real estate exchanges, which were actually removed from the tax code anyway. So it's really, as long as it's real estate and it's not your
can I go out to left field for a second? Because I remember I took a class before I met you. Now I just defer.
This is 1031 exchanges, Mike. I want you to have as much fun with this as you possibly can.
Left field is yours.
All the questions.
So I'm in this class and the guy's talking about, 1031, and maybe this is what you were talking about, that it's not in the section anymore, but he was talking about helicopters.
Yep.
Talking about boats.
Yep.
And, so do you have to exchange a boat for a boat, or?
Yes, and that's where it really was strict. And real estate's a blessing because it's so broad when it comes to that like-kind. Staying way out in left field, we had a fun one a few years ago before the before the code changed. We were dealing with fishing permits, and you could do 1031 exchanges with fishing permits. So there's these huge commercial permits, multi-million dollars, where you're selling and buying the rights to fish these certain species of fish for a certain amount of time in a certain area.
Wow.
And they had to be like-kind to one another. So we've seen some weird ones before they restricted it just to real estate, even though that's always been the primary use of it.
No more helicopters, no more fishing permits, no more
choppers, nope.
None of that stuff.
Yeah.
So Walter, we'll have to figure out something else with our private jets.
Yeah, sorry guys. You might just want to hang on to it.
Maybe if we just lease the jet, Mike. What do you think?
Yeah, net jets.
Also, artwork was another area where they were doing 1031 exchanges.
Oh, right.
And you can't do like painting for a statue. You got to do painting for painting. Even oil for oil in some cases.
Really?
Yeah, it was very specific when it came to non-real estate.
Huh. So now what about things, not that we get this here, but if you were in Texas or something like that, they were talking oil rights.
Yeah.
Properties that considered real estate, or?
If it's a lease, I'd have to double check, but I think 30 or more year lease, it would qualify as real estate.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Cool. So just a quick question. So again, for the newbies, just explain what a qualified intermediary is and why you need a qualified intermediary with a 1031 tax issue.
Sure. So we're basically a middleman, making sure that all of the rules and regulations in the Internal Revenue Code are followed, and that it's going to qualify. And some of the biggest rules have to do with these timeframes and deadlines that you have to meet when it comes to your sale and identification of reinvestment property. The big ones, it's after you sell. So the day of your closing starts the clock on a 45-day deadline to identify replacement property, as well as a 180-day clock to close on something you've identified. So typically,
let me stop you for a second, but I know it's 45 days from the closing, but if you're smart, you're already preparing before the closing to find
absolutely
properties. And one other question, is there like a limit of 3 properties? I know there was.
That is the general rule, and there are specific cases that allow you to identify more, but typically it's up to 3 properties, and as long as you're closing on those, it's going to be fine. There are cases I can get into in a few minutes when, like, if you want to sell a strip mall and get 10 lots that are, 50,000 each.
Oh, gotcha.
There are ways to do that, but I'll talk about those in a second.
Yeah.
But like you said, Mike, it's really important that you're looking for that replacement property. So we know what we're selling, and you have all the lead time you can get under contract on a property, even before you sell yours, as long as the closings follow sell first, buy second. That's doing a typical forward exchange, and that's always most affordable, at least, but it's a good way to be looking ahead of time, like you said.
Right. Okay. And what's the deal, the qualified intermediary? I mean, I know the answer, but I just want to hear from you about,
Sure.
the person can't touch the money.
Nope, that's something that would blow the exchange. So you need to have no control or access to those funds during the exchange. It needs to be an intermediary so from your closing, the proceeds are wired to our firm and we hold them in escrow until you're ready to reinvest into more property. If you just take cash at closing, that would all be taxable.
Right.
One thing we do see, some clients want, say you want to walk with 15,000 and put the rest into your 1031, you can do that just knowing that the 15 is going to be taxable. And that's something the term boot it's called boot when you have some taxable cash taken out of the exchange.
Gotcha. Cool. That is really cool. Yeah, because I've seen when I do the closings with a 1031 that the seller, the bottom line number is 0. I mean,
Yep.
I know you're talking about boot right now, but in general it's 0. And then you look up and you see going to RI 1031 exchange, you see, $350,000 going there.
Yep. Exactly. And that's another big part of what we do. So we have to interface with closing attorneys leading up to the closings and get our language onto the settlement statement. And that's all part of complying with the tax code to make sure our clients are deferring the taxes.
Yeah, what I love about working with you is that you make it so simple. You send us the documents, say these documents need to be signed. Here's the wiring instructions. This is where the money's going. And this is our fee, which is completely reasonable. And it's easy, People talk to me and they say, "Oh, can you do 1031 exchanges?" And I know I've got you, Joe, in my back pocket, so I'm like, "Yeah, of course I can do it." So.
Right. Yeah, we do try to do everything we can to simplify it for not only our clients but the other professionals we work with.
I think that a lot of times, because it's got a number and a name and all that stuff, it's a mystery, but.
Yeah, we like to clear that up whenever we can.
Yeah, exactly. So Walter, you're going to be 1031 exchanging those condos next year. Is that the plan?
Which is my next question, Joe.
Okay.
So
Sure.
we're doing these 1031 exchanges from condos. They're obviously one type of building. It's not my favorite type of building to own, especially as we get closer and closer to the height of the market. I was already concerned. I was like, man, I'm getting stuck holding these. Market looks like it expanded out. So now, that increase is pushing out to the future, but I still want to sell these condos and get into something a little more stable, like 6 families or bigger buildings, or even 3 families would be better than being in just condos.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at selling. I'll probably profit around $60,000 per condo, and I have about $35,000 in debt on each condo. So I understand, or I believe the understanding is that I have to get at least the same amount of debt on the next property, right?
Yeah, so the general rule is you want to be reinvesting equal or more than your sales price, not just the gain you're walking with. That's another thing people have misconceptions about. They think, I profited 60, I just need to put that into something and I'm good. But no, you need to reach that higher target because, there's intent behind all of this that you're not being unfairly taxed on an ongoing investment. So they don't want to see you, drop down in value and walk away with the advantages.
Right.
So it's about, growing and continuing to expand in that sense.
So do it.
That actually, hang on, sorry, Walter, but it's something that Walter says all the time is that you get rewarded for keeping your money in the system.
Yes.
So that's 1031, right, Walter? This is just another method of the government saying, keep it in.
That's
And keep it in the U.S. too. That's another thing with the 1031s. It encourages domestic reinvestment. So it's been around since 1921. So it's not a loophole like some people might say.
Yeah, and it works, and it certainly incentivizes us. Like Mike Schein said, we keep the money in the system. The government loves us. Like they encourage us to keep us doing it. If you take your money out of the system, they tax you.
Yep.
That's what tax is. It's a punishment for taking money out of the system. You leave it in, and they're like, "Yep, carry on. Keep playing with your money. Keep investing. Keep building." It's only when you take it out that they tax you on.
So Walter, in the past, you've talked about pyramiding to get to be a millionaire and more wealth.
Yeah.
I think I know the answer, but I just want clarification. Is the 1031 exchange the method for pyramiding? And maybe you can speak to that for our audience.
It's really the ultimate method for pyramiding. So I've done pyramiding in the past in a dirty manner where I'm paying the capital gains. I'm taking some of the money and using it to pay for my lifestyle, and then I'm taking the rest of it and I'm rolling into a property. Whereas a 1031 exchange, and I'm paying taxes. So three bills there, right? With a 1031 exchange, it all stays in. And what a pyramid is say you start with a 3-family, or I start with a single family. And I take that money from the single family of the sale, it was $34,000, split it into a 3-family and a 2-family. So I put 10,000 here and I moved 24,000 into that one. And that allowed me to buy 5 units with the sale of 1 property.
Nice.
And then you continue, you sell the 3-family, you buy 2 3-families. You sell the 2-family, you buy 2 more 3-families or a 6-family. And you continue to pyramid your units up, doubling.
I notice you don't get sentimental.
Not even close.
I noticed with my wife, I love her, but she loves her properties, and we get sentimental about this location. But you're not, you're buying and you're selling and moving up.
It was so funny. Like my first house, I remember we got to the close, even before the close table, like a week before, my ex-wife was staying to me. She was saying, "Oh, I'm just gonna miss all the memories." And in my head, I'm like, "Dude, like I can't wait to get out of here. Like as soon as this closes, I got new projects, right? Like this house is fixed. It's perfect already. Nothing to do."
Yeah.
Don't look back.
No, don't look back. And then I remember leaving the closing table, just feeling lighter. I just like, oh, I'm moving forward in my life. Like I'm on the next property, and now I've got 5 units coming. Like I already knew there were 5 units coming, and it was just so exciting. Whereas she felt this little bit of loss when letting go of the property.
She must be an S.
She definitely was an S. Yes.
This profile. Get all sentimental. I know my property, Nana's Shack, will never sell that.
Yeah, right.
We'll never sell that one.
Well, it's a good place for you to live, good place for you to hang out if you're visiting back home. When you're living in Florida and then coming back up here because it's 1031, some property with Joe, and now you're in Florida and you want to come back home, well, you can sell the house you have now because you don't have to take care of the kids anymore. And, well, who knows, right? Your kids
they'll still be there. They'll be 40 and still be with us.
Yeah, you still got some young ones, so.
So I got a question for Joe. So the company is RI 1031 Exchange.
Yep.
But the 1031 Exchange is a federal tax code. So you can do 1031 exchanges for property anywhere in the United States?
Yes, that's absolutely right. And we do see a lot of, obviously our referral network, which is huge for us, is really based in Rhode Island for the most part, but we see a lot of clients reinvesting, into Florida or the Carolinas or up north to New Hampshire and Maine based on, their objectives and interests. But we are able to do business for exchanges from any state.
Excellent, because that's my strategy, right?
Hawaii 1031 exchange.
I like it, Mike. I mean, I'm looking at doing one from here to Orlando. Ron and I were talking about selling. So here's the other question. So we sell these condos in batches, right? We can sell one at a time, or we line a few up and we sell them all.
We'd sell 6 of them at once.
We may.
To someone, maybe. Just a thought.
There may be someone who's pinching the idea. So say we sell a bunch of these all at once, for example, 6, and we're profiting not as much, maybe it's not 60, now we're profiting 40, but we're getting that out of all of these. That's now $240,000 that can buy us almost $1 million of property. Sure. So we'd be changing 5 into 1 building. Is that possible?
That is possible as long as the timing works. So if your closings are going to fall within 6 months, essentially, that's the key target. So you fall within that 180-day rule for them, because you can't be putting 1031 money into something you already own So for example, you can't, pay down a chunk of your mortgage with it after you got started on that. But you can sell 5 and reinvest into 1, or do the opposite. You could sell the one big one and buy 5 things.
Okay.
And one example of a client that I really enjoyed working with, and this gets into a strategy that some of our older people at the end of their investing, they want to get into simpler properties. He was a hands-on manager of 3 multis in one socket for years and years, wanted to simplify things, and he sold them all off and got into a fully triple net leased dollar store property. And now he has that passive income that I heard Mike championing, so it can really change. As your strategies change, you have to keep that 1031 in mind. Or like Walter said, he wants to, he has some condos he's not crazy about. It's a good time to sell. Relocating or getting into different class properties, that's all something that pairs perfectly with the 1031 if you have that in mind for your big picture strategy.
Nice.
That leads me to a question. So
Sure.
I don't know if this still exists, but when my father sold one of his larger assets or they were thinking about selling it, there were these companies that were coming and talking about TICs, or tenants in common, where you could buy, be a small portion or a shareholder, one of, I think it was like 30 shareholders in a TIC of in this case, it was a skyscraper down in Atlanta.
Woo!
Triple net lease, but there's one general partner and you're one of, I think it was limited to 30 limited partners have you seen that, or do you know about that?
Yeah. So there's essentially there's a special asset class that's been blessed by the IRS to qualify as real estate, because traditionally you can't sell and reinvest into a REIT because you're not owning the underlying real estate. You need to be, on the deed basically. But there's a vehicle called the DST, a Delaware Statutory Trust, which face value, it looks and acts exactly like a REIT. You're, like you said, a fractional owner of a big project, whether it's a high rise or, a huge sports complex, whatever it is, usually multi-million-dollar things.
I want to do that.
Yeah, those are fun.
So big sports complex.
Yeah. Awesome. and you're totally passive investing into that. There's pros and cons to it. You don't have full control of what's going on with the project. Like you said, there's a manager of it, but yeah, the DST is one way to get that done.
And that's stuff that you work with as well, right?
Yeah, we have, there's a financial planner that we have a good relationship with who is a broker for those. And she's helped several of our clients. And
in Rhode Island, or?
Yep, in Rhode Island.
Is that Amy? Or is
That's Amy.
It's Amy. Nice. Amy's coming on too, so
awesome.
We're gonna have her on, so that's like full circle. I do have a question, Joe,
Sure.
and I don't know if you have the answer to this, but who actually creates a DST? What separates that from a syndication and a real estate investment trust, and who can actually do those?
That is an Amy question, my friend.
I'll
admit what I don't know. I'm not sure who is qualified to start those up.
Was I correct, or do you know about the limit of the number of passive investors in a DST, or?
I'm not exactly sure. I just know that they're typically $100,000 minimums, and you need $1 million net worth for those. So it could be more, I think, but I'm not positive.
It's so funny. I didn't know Gualter at the time, but whenever I used to talk about this, besides my father, but I talked about it was always an example of the Portuguese guy in Fall River that owned multifamilies, who decided he had a hardworking man had decided he had enough of doing that, and then bought in a high rise in Atlanta. That was
that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's the universe right there.
Mike, it's going to be us. We're the next generation.
Yeah, that's so awesome. That's so
I
awesome.
love that.
Yeah, we got to talk. We're always talking about doing the 10,000 unit REIT, but maybe
Right.
it's maybe we start with a DST. Who the heck
That's
knows?
what I'm thinking. This way we can help our people not pay taxes,
Yeah.
get into the DST, and then figure out how to take it public later on.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. Maybe, I mean, I always wanted to take one public, but
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm right with you.
hell yeah. So
You
it's
just have
going.
to call me Sam Zell.
That's it, man.
So Joe, we didn't really. I just wanted to get into your background a little bit. So, how did you get into this? Like, what, I mean, people are probably like, "Who's Joe?"
Well, I started the company with my mom over about 5 years ago now, and she has a really strong tax background. She's a former IRS agent, and she was doing 1031s a little bit as like an ancillary company with a lawyer at one point, just for clients they had. And by the time I was graduating from URI, I had found out about them from her, and I said, can we take a shot at, specializing in those? And what I love about what we do is we're a total one-trick pony, and we do what we do really well because of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So is it, that just leads to a next question. Is this something that you see in all markets? Like, is it recession proof? Do you see, I mean, do people always doing 1031 exchanges?
No, I would say it definitely fluctuates with the market. For example, after 08, not many people had as much gain to be deferring in the first place. So I'd say that being on the growth side of the market is good. So everything while we've been in business has been good. And if there was a major downturn in sales prices, it would get less and less high volume for us. But, since we've been young and growing, the seasonality hasn't been huge on us. We've just, continued to grow our network and continue to help people.
So you touched on something that me and Mike talk about all the time, the market, where it's going, what's happening now, and what do you see? So if there is a downturn in the market, do you think the 1031s would go away, or would you see more investors shifting assets still? Because I believe you should still pyramid. At the bottom of the market, it's a great time to sell if you're buying 2 more buildings.
Right.
Yeah, I would say that there would be a spike in the event of a clear turn in the market. People would, like you're saying, if you think that those condos are maybe near the top of their value, that's the time to move the money into something you see being beneficial through a downturn. Maybe focusing more on cash flow or
multifamilies, yeah,
or something like a ton of lots of land. You could do that if you think it'll hold its value throughout a huge economic turn and cycle.
And land counts as like kind, right?
Land is like kind. So you could do land for a condo for a multi for a strip mall.
Yep.
That's all fair game.
What's the story with things like, or maybe there's no connection at all. I don't know the answer to this, but what's the story with construction costs? Or like if you go from a, beautiful condos that are all fixed up, and then you go to something that would be like a burr, something that needs a full rehab. How does that work with the money?
With the money, if you want to use some of your 1031 money from your sale towards the construction, it gets into one of the special types of exchanges called a construction exchange or a build to suit.
Nice. Wow.
Now,
Mike, you found one. Good.
Where's the price of admission? Right there.
Beautiful. So one of the tricky things with that, however, is I mentioned earlier, you can't put the money into something you already own. So you can't just buy first and then pump the rest of the money in, because everything after the purchase would not qualify. So what we have to do as the intermediary for those is create an entity that's going to park that replacement property during the construction phase. So you have that 180-day window to carry out construction, bring the fair market value up to that, target price where you've spent all the money on hand.
Wow, that's cool.
And then we deed the whole thing back to you at the end. And those are a little more expensive for that reason, but still absolutely worth it if that's what your plan is.
So we're doing the construction during that 180 days, but you still technically are owning the property. Like
it's called a qualified exchange accommodator title holder. That's the entity we create. You like that?
I think I
Kiwi
have
for
a
sure.
tattoo on my arm that says that.
Nice, mine's on my back. So we create that for you. It's a single purpose LLC, and we sign a lease agreement with you. So you're the manager. You have full control of what's going on. But then when it comes to the money, so you want to pay a contractor, you say, we're doing this, send him 10 grand for the, roof, blah, blah, blah. We facilitate the money side while you call the shots on what's going on with the property, but we would own it until we deed it back to you.
Awesome.
Nice.
Hey,
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this because this doesn't have to do with 1031 exchanges, but I think, I don't want to put Walter on the spot here, but is there something with stocks that's similar to a 1031 exchange?
I believe it's a 1041 exchange.
Right.
Is that similar, Joe?
I'm not actually sure.
Okay.
I stick to the real estate.
Question.
It might be, yeah.
Definitely an Amy question. And the premise, from what I understand, 1041 exchange allows you to do big capital gains and transfer them over into a different stock. So you'd sell Berkshire Hathaway and you'd go and buy Tesla, and which would be crazy, but I understand that people might want to do it. Two of Mike's stocks, right?
Yeah, right.
But that I don't know any of the regulations behind it. I don't know how many days it takes or what the qualifications would be. But we can find out from Amy. Joe, we talked at the beginning about a reverse 1031, and actually I've got a question. Yeah, what is a reverse 1031? And I got a question from Facebook Live that I'll ask in a second.
Okay. So what is a reverse?
Yep.
Reverse exchange, these come up when the order of your closings needs to be flipped around. So your replacement property, you need to close on it prior to closing on your sale. The timeframes work the same, however, the whole process is backwards. And since you can't own both properties at the same time during an exchange, it's just like with the construction, we need to create an entity that buys the replacement property on your behalf to start the exchange. Then the 45-day deadline is pretty much arbitrary because you know what you own, which is what you're going to sell for it, which is one of the huge advantages of a reverse exchange. It takes that time pressure of, hunting for the perfect replacement property off the table. And then as long as you're selling what you owned within 180 days, that can all be used to defer the tax and get you into that new property.
Let me just back up. So you've got a property you want to sell and it's not selling yet, but you already know the property and the that you want to buy, and the seller of that property says you have to buy in the next 30 days because that's what you would do, and you would do it with the qualified intermediary. And then I got it.
Exactly. And obviously that poses an issue for financing. If you can't, fund the purchase out of pocket, it's tough to find, I should just say not all banks are willing to lend to an LLC that we created yesterday to make this purchase.
Right.
They need to understand 1031s to get on board with that. But otherwise it's useful if you're under the gun to pull the trigger on the replacement property for sure.
And so do you have banks that you work with on a regular basis that are up to speed on this type of stuff, or?
Yeah, we have some relationships with some of the local banks. Credit unions are more willing to, as long as they, the bigger BOA might not be so willing because of the typical checking the boxes they need to go through. But, and we also bank with Bank Newport. We've been happy with them. They have people who understand the process, and that's the key to helping that work.
Good, I'll have to call you.
Call me, I'll get you lined up.
Yeah, Joe, this has been pretty valuable so far. What questions are we not asking you? What are questions that you really wish investors asked before going and doing one of these or coming to you?
Some of the common things, if people aren't able to reinvest the full amount that we're holding, it's important to know that doesn't throw the whole thing away. It's considered a partial 1031 if you sell for 300,000, reinvest 250 of that. That's still probably going to be to your benefit where you're, again, paying tax on the difference. You pay tax on the 50.
You see that a lot?
It's not terribly uncommon, but if people are able to, definitely more clients do than don't do the full deferral.
So that's a person who's sort of downsizing in their investment.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
You know what? I've done that a couple of times, but didn't do the 1031 because I just wasn't savvy enough at the time, right? Like or just didn't have a property lined up, and I was like, well, whatever, I'll just take the gain.
Right.
Also, it's important to keep in mind your gain is not simply the difference in your purchase and sale price on it. Depreciation's factored in. So if you've owned something, you bought it 20 years ago for $100,000, and you're selling for, $150,000. With the depreciation, there's a huge difference. Really, your gain would be much more than just the 50.
Or if you're like in Boston, you bought a house for 250, and now it's worth 900,000.
Exactly.
But you paid down the mortgage to 200.
Yeah.
Big gain there.
Yeah. That's
brutal. So Amy was just asking, Alicia was just asking, she was hoping we could dig into the concept of the sale of the condo into something bigger. She wasn't very specific on her question.
Sure.
So if you could just kind of walk us through, what would that process look like? If selling something you bought for $35,000, and forget amortization, right? No amortization on this because it's a hard money loan. And so you're walking through this, and you want to go buy a 6-family. What would that process look like?
Well, the dollar amounts really wouldn't make a huge difference as long as you're following that general rule of thumb where you want to reinvest equal to or more than your sales price. And if it helps, I could talk a bit more generally about the steps and the process for, working with us.
Yeah, I think that would be best. What is the process? How does somebody get started with you, and what is the process for going through it?
Exchange agreement. We reach out to the closing attorney and get everything in.
Sorry, Joe. Let me ask you to start that over again. I think I lost service, and since I'm the live feed, I want to make sure that everybody gets that.
Okay. So the general 1031 process is when you're under contract for the property you're selling, we get involved. We draft our contract from the paperwork, your P&S agreement, and leading up to the closing, we reach out to the attorneys that are going to handle it, and the funds, like we said, are wired to us rather than the seller. We set up your escrow account, and when you're ready to make a purchase, we can pay deposits out of the funds held in escrow. And then when it comes time for that closing, again, we reach out, get everything in place for them to realize we're bringing X amount of dollars to the table for this closing. If you need more, we get the settlement statement to look right. And then we put a nice binder together for your CPA by the end of it all. And it makes it easy on them to report it properly.
Nice. And Joe,
I dropped out. Could you repeat that whole thing again?
I'll tell you later, Mike.
Yeah, thanks. Hopefully this COVID thing, we can go out for a drink or something. I'd like to.
I'm ready for it. I got enough money saved from the bars being closed.
I'm telling you,
right?
Same here.
Imagine, Walter, you should talk about that sometime, about COVID, how much money has been saved and how that can turn into a down payment on your first. You talk about like going out in Fall River and the money that can be spent at the clubs at night, or
if people spend what I spend, they can be putting $3,000 a month away. I'm saving $3,000 a month just on not going out. It's absolutely ridiculous.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the local businesses feel it, but there's one place in Providence I spent over $6,000 at last year. One place. I was just looking at
Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv, yeah.
Yep.
Tel Aviv.
Do they give you cigars there? I mean, is that they have cigars? Okay.
Yeah, they have cigars. Every Wednesday, I'm there every Wednesday, right? Every Wednesday we spend $100, $140, and then you never know, you buy somebody else a drink or a cigar.
Yeah.
But it does.
You're not really. You said you don't usually drink too much when you go out. So
Not me personally.
Are you
no.
buying drinks for other people?
But I'm always buying drinks.
I'll have to run into you then.
Right. Smart man.
Here's my rule: own real estate, right? So now I'm working an angle. I'm looking to buy it.
Yeah.
Or have a lot of money because now I'm looking to borrow money from you. So you have a lot of real estate or a lot of money, and I'll probably buy you a drink.
There you go. We can call it like a 1031 bar exchange.
Joe, can we 1031 my bar purchases?
Yep, a few whiskeys for some 1031 knowledge. How about that to start?
Now I just want to put a little budget aside. It's a reinvestment into a like asset.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
It is like mine.
I'll make sure it's all good with the IRS.
Excellent. We'll just call it a marketing budget, right? I'm trying to get to the next property.
Yeah, that's awesome.
This might get us into trouble.
All right. Okay.
It's not real estate.
You know, it's funny because my accountant did look at it and he said, holy shit, that's a lot. And I was like, yeah, I put under entertainment because I thought it was a lot of fun. And well, you classified it right. So it's true, man. There are a lot of things that you can do in this business, enjoying yourself and that move your business forward, and that the government says, high five, yeah, you're right, that was an investment. And be able to upgrade your buildings or simplify your investments. Like you talked about earlier, simplifying to a CVS. Like that is a dollar store. Mm-hmm. Simplifying or expanding what we're talking about, going from a condo to a 6-family. That strategy is condoned by the government. They're saying, yes, keep growing, keep owning real estate, because here's the deal. I don't think a lot of people understand how important housing is to the government. They subsidize it before a reason, because without it, they get riots. When people can't afford a house, when people don't have a place to live, people are now in the streets. It doesn't look good for the city. The tax basis is hurt. So they want us owning more real estate, and they want us developing more real estate. It's intrinsic to the government's goal of keeping everybody happy. So what you're doing, Joe, allowing us to keep our game going is actually, I mean, the government's high-fiving you too.
Right. I mean, they put it into the tax code for a reason, like you said. And one small thing also is you're not just kicking the can down the road in terms of your capital gains tax, because each time you do it, you're making use and leveraging all that money you're keeping in your real estate portfolio. Right. So it's much more beneficial than just saying, oh, I have to pay it later anyway, I might as well pay it now. I mean, that really bites you when you think about a big picture.
Right.
I've sold 8 or 9 of, I actually have to go and do the math. It's going to disgust me. That's why I've never done it. But I've sold 8 or 9 properties of my own investment properties that I did not 1031 exchange. Yep. And I know the first one, wasn't a big deal because I was owner occupying, so that one doesn't count, right? So I didn't pay any tax on it. But the second one, I made $100,000. The gain I paid in taxes that year was $20,000. It was a $20,000 gain that I paid. So I'm already thinking, okay, that $20,000 would have been a $100,000 down payment, right? I could have rolled that into a different property,
right.
Or if I only put 10% down, that could have been a $200,000 project, right? I could have done one of my flips with that $20,000. And now I'm thinking, okay, well, if I'd done, and all my flips I held for a year, they're all like Burr strategy, right. Hold for long term, like a hybrid. And, some of them I profited 150,000 on, some of them 100,000, some of them, 60,000. But thinking about how much money I could have leveraged, it's probably over $1 million extra real estate I could have right now. Oh shit! It's probably more than that, right? Like,
that's scary.
So that's a great. If somebody's listening to this, and you're thinking of selling, right, please. This is not a solicitation. I'm not looking for business or whatever. But call Walter or call me. We'll get you in touch with Joe. Joe, we can have you put your information if they want to call you directly. But it's a real shame, even as the attorney looking in, and then like the example you said, 2 weeks later, they say, hey, I want a 1031. And you're like, oh, this is not the time. So
those bring a tear to my eye, Mike.
Yeah, exactly.
For their sake, honestly, it's a shame when it's just a lack of information that costs you tens of thousands of dollars.
It's a victimless crime.
I know. Uncle Sam's got enough. Come on.
So Joe, what's the easiest way to get in touch with you or your mom? What's the easiest way to get in touch with you guys if you're looking to do a 1031? Just get more information about it.
Well, our website has all of our contact info out there. It's
Nice.
ri1031exchange.com. Also, my cell is good, 401-465-7790. And we can take it from there. We always, we're happy to offer a free consultation. We just like connecting with people and finding ways to help them defer those taxes.
Awesome.
Hey, before we get out, I wanted to ask a quick question, because you said that this has been around since 1921.
It has.
I just wonder, did you, and you probably, I don't know if you know the answer, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but do you know if anybody like Rockefeller or Carnegie or any of those guys used the 1031 exchange back in the day? Like,
I'm not sure on the history side of it. I can only imagine that they would have been taking advantage of it, though.
I'm going to go do some research.
All right.
Because it's just crazy. 1921.
Let me know.
It's
I know.
still there with all the changes to the tax code, and every president comes in and says they're going to simplify it.
One of the funniest things about that idea of like kind being so specific for other exchanges was right in the tax code, they referenced 1031 exchanges with livestock. And it was gender specific, so your male cattle had to be exchanged for other males, not females.
Really?
And vice versa.
So cow for cow, bull for
cow,
bull.
back in the day.
No kidding.
Funny.
So if there is a book, and Mike, I don't know if you have another book you want to present, but Loopholes of Real Estate Investing, Secrets of Successful Real Estate Investing. It's put up by Rich Dad Poor Dad, Garrett Sutton. He's an attorney. But this book talks a lot about the 1031 exchanges and why it makes sense. There's a lot of great tax strategies and loopholes to real estate investing, specific to real estate, that farmers no longer get. And I mean, unless they're selling their farms and their land, which now real estate.
Right.
And that is another asset class within real estate that does work.
Turn it into a solar farm.
It becomes a solar farm. Yep. Put multifamily right there. But this book goes a lot into it. So if you're looking for a book, it's written by Rich Dad Poor Dad, the advisor book, Loopholes of Real Estate. And
what's the author's name? Sutton?
It's Garrett Sutton, Esquire.
Sutton. Nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I didn't get all the way through that book. That one was, that's a thick one. And I just looked at the couple chapters I wanted.
Yeah.
but it goes into 1031s and how we can, as real estate investors, advantage ourselves in ways like this. There's nothing better than real estate for tax advantages. And right now we're just talking about where the economy is going with the inflation that's coming. Dude, I want to be in more real estate than I've ever wanted to be in real estate. Somebody just asked us on the Facebook Live, should I be buying real estate now? Is it still a good time to buy? Like, dude, I am looking to double down. Right?
What's our quote?
So like, we got a quote. Don't wait to buy real estate.
Buy real estate and wait.
That's right.
That's so good.
Because
although I can't compare that to swap till you drop.
No.
Only if you like your kids.
Awesome.
Only if you like your kids, right? Yeah. Swap till you drop.
Yeah.
I've heard that from so many different people, so many different ways, but that's my favorite one to say it. You got defer, and die, but at the end of the day.
And the point of defer, die is that you have a property, you 1031 exchange into another property, that's deferring taxes once, you do it again, that's deferring twice, you do it again, maybe 3, 4, 5 times, and then you die and you give your kids legacy wealth. So yeah, pretty amazing stuff. Yeah. My dad wasn't too happy about that.
No, so you mean I have to die?
Yeah, right.
And Mike gets it all.
Yeah,
Mike,
right.
You got siblings, right? How many siblings do you have?
2, a brother and a sister.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I'd rather have my dad stay around for much longer time.
I know. You want to keep him around for a long time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm sure your siblings feel the same way.
Yeah.
Anyway. Joe, great call, man. Thank you so much for jumping on with us.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
I don't know if we talked to you a little bit about our mission, but we're looking to build millionaires. We're looking to build 100 millionaires who are going to be able to help another 100 millionaires. We know that not everybody's cut out for this. So our 100 millionaires are going to be very specific. They have to go out and train another 100 millionaires themselves. This way we can have a real impact on the world and make it a much better place. So we're aiming to touch at least 10,000 people and turn them into millionaires, which we know awesome. A 1031 exchange guy is going to be able to do that faster. And that's the whole point, right?
We'll help you get them there.
Yeah.
That's right.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Fast track retirement, man. That's the strategy. Joe, you can make this. I'm telling you, if I thought back, I'd have an extra $1 million really.
Right.
Like if
that's
I was,
we'll be sure the next million gets in there.
Exactly.
Oh, believe it.
That's what I'm saying. Please, if you're listening to this, call us. If you're selling a property, it's not to get business. It's to create millionaires and to create them faster. And it's just, I've heard the same horror story too, where people didn't use the 1031, and it's just like you said, you could lose up to 40% by not doing that. That's a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Do that with real numbers.
It's scary. It's eye-opening.
Making me nauseous.
I know. It's funny because I mean, we're always talking about the positive in the future and where you're supposed to go. And every so often I'll mention like, oh man, I missed this deal. Like I should have done that deal 3 years ago. And my girlfriend will be like, 3 years ago, you're still hanging on to this? Like,
right.
Yeah, but you know, like,
let it go.
You're a millionaire. You're a multi-millionaire. You're doing okay. It's like if it was a really good deal though, and I really messed it up.
Yeah. Well, what kind of kills me about it is that I've been learning the last 6 months or so, really diving deep into compounding.
Yeah.
And so when you look at an opportunity 3 years ago, it's not just that opportunity, it's what it would have compounded into. And yeah. Sorry, I don't mean to bum you out, but I feel like, yeah.
I'm going to put this out there so everybody can feel the shame and hate, right? So I had this opportunity to invest with 3 other guys who I really like, and we're still friends now from this deal, but $1.2 million, it was in, the deal was in Brockton, which by the way is super appreciating market right now. And at the time it was $1.2 million for 24 2-bedroom units that were already getting $1,200 a month in rent. So $50 a door. The portfolio right now is worth almost $5 million. And that was only 3 years ago. And I had no clue how to do it. And and the guy was willing to do seller financing. Like he was willing to help us out. And it's like, man, I just totally botched that whole deal.
Expensive education, right?
Super expensive. Man.
Look forward to the next one, Walter.
Yeah, right.
And I'll be 1031ing these so I can get that money back.
Good. We'll get you there.
Forward. So thank you, Joe. Again, what is the website people can contact you on?
ri1031exchange.com, and my email is joe, Joe, at ri1031exchange.com. So feel free to reach out to anybody that might be able to make use of a 1031 exchange.
Oh my God, so glad you came on. This is like so valuable. I just I'm
absolutely
selfish. We just, Walter and I, like things that we need information on. Let's just get people on that are
if it helps you, it'll help other people. So it's a good attitude to have.
We just have a list of questions that we want answered, and we're like, okay, let's reach up and we'll bring them on the podcast. And ask all our questions.
Reach a bigger audience.
That's right.
And it's working. And you've been so valuable. And I just want to say one more thing is on Saturday, we teach the 52 weeks to wealth, each wealth principle. What we just talked about actually really ties into the upcoming wealth principle, which is how to deliver a higher quality product, how to deliver more for people and really be the best in your marketplace. I think that's what wealth principle 19 or 20 is be the authority on your subject, be the best in your area. And you've really mastered that, Joe. So, great job. And I want to invite you to come Saturday. We do it. It's free. It's a free webinar. I'll put the link below, but we do it every single week, releasing one of the 52 wealth principles and the book of the week that Mike Schein and I have collaborated to choose that corresponds with the principle. So it's
I'll gladly tune in. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. We'd love to have you in there, and we can pull on you a little bit and say, hey, by the way, here's Joe who's doing exactly this. And have you ever read the book Outliers, Joe?
No, I've been recommended a couple of times though.
Yeah.
You are an outlier. Yeah. So people
It's
who
good
have
to
spent,
be.
yeah, there are people who've spent over 7 years in something or 10,000 hours in something,
Yep.
becoming a master at it. And you've definitely done that. So that said, Mike, close us out. What is your saying? What is your favorite phrase, man?
Massive income from passive income.
Joe
So good to
Ackaway,
have
we
you,
appreciate you.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
It's the 100 Millionaires podcast. We're looking to increase your income faster, fast tracking retirement. When you have a choice, always work with the best. Later, guys.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Joe.
No problem.